Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Alisé of Knowthyselfandheal.com. So today I wanted to do a brief video for you discussing the eclipse season in 2023 that we've just experienced, as we experienced a new moon solar eclipse in Aries on April 20th of 2023 and a full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio on May 5th of 2023. So if you don't already know, I already did 2 videos for this with another astrologer, Camelia Simianova. We did a video for each eclipse. They're both 3 hours long, so they're quite an investment of time. And I do understand that not everyone will want to listen to a 3-hour video, or maybe not necessarily have the time at the moment to listen to 3 hours for each eclipse. And although I do recommend it, there's some really potent information in there that I think could be helpful. So if you can, put in your AirPods and do something, get some things done while you're listening. You can always do it that way, or you can watch the videos. But I wanted to do a video that was really just looking at each eclipse, giving you potent information that could be helpful for you in really assessing this eclipse season in your own life. And so, as you likely know, we had 2 new moons in Aries, one in March, one in April, right? And so this is an interesting piece because we had a new moon in Aries at the first, almost the first degree, right? And in Aries, and then we had a new moon at the very last degree at 29 degrees and 50 minutes, right? And this was the solar eclipse. And what's interesting about that, the fact that we had 2 new moons, was that it actually has created somewhat of a new cycle in how we experience the lunations until July of 2024. So usually we experience a new moon in a sign, and then we experience a full moon in its opposite sign. Now, since we had 2 new moons in Aries, this actually switched this lunation cycle. We'll begin to experience the full moons before the new moons. So we'll experience a full moon in a sign, and then we experience the new moon in the opposite sign. And what I find interesting about this is that this cycle will actually switch back in July of 2024 when we experience 2 full moons in Capricorn. And those full moons are actually at 0 degrees and at 29 degrees as well. And from there, after those full moons in Capricorn, we'll switch back to experience the new moons first, then the full moons. So what that speaks to me is that because those signs that have created that switch with the new moons and full moons, right, of Aries and Capricorn, they're both cardinal signs. And so interestingly, we've had Pluto activating those cardinal signs since 2008 as it's been in Capricorn, right? So we've all been really doing this excavating of these Plutonian themes where we're really working with what I like to call automatic default settings. I always think of Pluto and Plutonian consciousness as it's the unconscious mind, where we've acted on behalf of our own needs and our own values. And we've done that so many times that it's become automatic default. It's become something that is just instinctual. And what's wonderful about Pluto transits is we get the opportunity to rewrite those scripts. We get that opportunity to rewrite what is in our automatic pilot, what is our automatic default settings, so that we can actually update into a momentum that's actually more evolved, really. It creates a new evolutionary momentum because we've experienced things. In some ways, we can come into completion with the ways in which we've acted on behalf of our own needs in the past, especially with Pluto in Capricorn, because this is, in a square, a natural square to Aries and Libra. And this has to do with how we relate to ourselves and our own needs, and then how we actually share that with others, right? So this means also how we relate with others, right? So with Pluto moving through Capricorn 2008, and now culminating, this actually has been having us really do a lot of work in regards to how we actually structure our own consciousness and therefore our own reality. So, experiencing the full moons before the new moons is really, I think, such a grand design, as it always is, because we get to experience completions, and from those completions, we are then able to utilize the new moons in a new way, where normally we experience a new moon and then we experience the full moon, right? We can set intentions with the new moon and seed new things with the new moons and then experience the full moons. Now that they're switched, we're experiencing the full moons so that we can come into completion around how we've been restructuring our own internal reality as Pluto's been in Capricorn. And then we can, as we experience those completions, we can actually utilize these new moons in very clear and clean ways, because full moons ask us to clean things up, to complete things, so that we have room to grow. So we have room to grow in new ways and seed new things. So I wanted to share that with you because I think it's quite interesting that that's happening for us, right? Now, as I said, we experienced a new moon solar eclipse on April 20th, 2023. And I'm just going to be looking at the chart, and I want to just talk about some things for each chart that we're going to cover, which is the new moon solar eclipse and the full moon lunar eclipse. So this new moon solar eclipse happened on April 20th, 2023. And this was at, let's see, 1:58 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So depending on where you are, you might have experienced it on April 19th. Okay? So anyways, this happened at 29 degrees 50 minutes. And interestingly, Mercury was at 15 degrees, coming really close to Uranus at 17 degrees of Taurus. And the day after this eclipse, the solar eclipse, Mercury went retrograde. At the degree that we actually experienced the full moon lunar eclipse, so where the sun is at the full moon lunar eclipse on May 5th. So that's something to note. So Mercury would be then opposing where the full moon will be on May 5th, right? So now as it's coming up close to Uranus, it doesn't completely fuse with Uranus, which we call a conjunction, which would be a new cycle with Mercury and Uranus. It actually implies that there is getting close to some new beginning, but there's some information that we could utilize to come into full completion. Now, with Mercury going retrograde right after the new moon eclipse is really, really powerful, because anytime a planet changes direction around this eclipse time is really potent. So, and it is potent that it happens to be at the degree where the sun will be when we experience the full moon eclipse May 5th. So Mercury goes retrograde on April 21st, and Mercury will be retrograding all the way back to about 5 degrees of Taurus. So it doesn't quite reach the North Node, but comes close to the North Node in Taurus, right? And then stations direct. And that date for you, I want to give you the date for Mercury direct. I did look at it, but you know, I have so many dates running around in my head. So Mercury goes direct at 5 degrees on May 15th. So that's a good day to pay attention to what kind of information you're getting, insights. And really with the Mercury retrogrades, always remember this is really switching into right brain thinking, our intuitive mind. We might actually find that we get information that validates some perceptions we've been having, but haven't really, quite put a finger on it yet. We could also really, as we are relaxing our body and really allowing ourselves some free time to relax and allow information to settle, we can be getting some intuitive hits in regards to what's next for us and how we want to act on our own behalf and our own needs and our own values and value. What we value. And I say value, it's very important. This is an important piece because Taurus is where all this action is happening. With Uranus being there, Mercury's there, the North Node has been there. And so we're also culminating the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio. The nodes of the moon are going to actually switch into Aries and Libra in July of 2023. So we will experience another eclipse in the Taurus-Scorpio axis in the fall or spring, wherever you are in the world, right? So in the next eclipse portal, right? But this is the last eclipse in Taurus-Scorpio with the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio, because the nodes will move into Aries and Libra. And we're going to start weaving in these eclipses, right, as we've started with Aries and Libra. And so as we've been doing this work since the nodes of the moon have been in Taurus and Scorpio, this work has been yin energy. Taurus and Scorpio is yin consciousness. So this is internal work. And remembering that Pluto actually went retrograde on May 1st. So within this eclipse season, Pluto, the ruler or planetary guide to the south node of Scorpio, went retrograde. It did enter Aquarius and it got to 22 minutes of Aquarius and then went retrograde on May 1st, right before this full moon lunar eclipse. And Pluto is the planetary ruler of this full moon lunar eclipse on May 5th. So important that it retrograded. And as I said, we always want to pay attention to planets that are changing direction during the eclipse season. So Pluto will retrograde back into Capricorn, and it actually arrives back into Capricorn on June 12th of 2023. And so this can really be showing us where there's more internal work that we need to do. Capricorn's a yin sign, so this is again how we structure our own consciousness and how we're structuring it. Is this empowering for us? Is it really empowering in regards to our relationships as well? And so how we're structuring our consciousness, how we're structuring our lives, and the way in which we're relating to our own needs and the needs of others. And so Pluto retrograding is important because it's going to go and ask us to clean up any residual work that may need to be done so that we're really creating the parameters by which we desire to experience our life in our own reality. And so this can actually have us, as Mercury has gone retrograde as well, be really looking at, are my values really resonating with the parameters by which I've created thus far? Is there more work that I could do? And this might involve communication. We might need to find ourselves needing to be communicating what our values are, and so that we are actually showing up for our own needs and our own value, period. And I say just our value, valuing ourselves and being devoted to ourselves. The interesting thing is that, Aquarius is a yang sign. It's ruled by Saturn and Uranus, and Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is always where it is. I'll give you some key words for Capricorn. This is like restriction, limitation, parameters, boundaries. It has to do with our skin. It has to do with our bones, our teeth, our very bone structure, right? So this is the foundation of our body, and therefore the foundation of our consciousness, therefore the foundation of our lives, that is actually built in order to have a sense of safety and security. And so we can even think of this as our own homes. We have a home that we build that is meant to provide a sanctuary where we're safe to be ourselves and where our needs are being honored, where we're able to actually tend to our basic needs so that we can go out into the world, Aquarius, yang form of Saturn, in a way that is solid and that where our value is able to be shared, where our contribution, our unique contribution of light is able to be shared and is actually thriving and growing, right? So the work that we do with Pluto and Capricorn is about making sure that the boundaries, the parameters by which we're structuring our own consciousness is actually in support of our own value and values, what it is we value, what it is we love in the world, and what it is that supports us to share our love. So this is important. And, interestingly, the same day that Pluto went retrograde, Mercury and the Sun were in a cazimi, which means in the heart of the sun. Mercury was in the heart of the sun. So it's beginning a new cycle with the sun. And this is important because it actually is an initiation point with Mercury and the sun. And when you think about it, being in Taurus, this is an earth sign. So this has to do with everything that has that is our Taurus nature, right? So it has to do with our senses. It has to do with how we're utilizing our senses to inform us of our own values and value. And this can be a really potent time to actually initiate new projects, new things that you desire to embody in the world. And so very potent that we had this Mercury cazimi in Taurus. It was at 11 degrees and 19 minutes on the same day that Pluto goes retrograde. And so we can think of this like, well, Pluto going retrograde is also like, okay, I have this thing that I desire to embody. Are there any areas that need to be cleansed, cleaned up so that I can move forward with this embodiment in a clear and clean way, where there are no distractions. There's nothing that is actually moving consciousness in ways that is dissipating energy or consciousness or taking away from my value or what I value. So very potent eclipse season. Now, I just want to make sure I'm seeing everything that I wanted to talk about in this new moon eclipse on the 20th of April. you know, right before the eclipse, the moon passed over Jupiter in Aries. So this is important because, you know, Jupiter in Aries is going to be coming into culmination. Jupiter's going to go into Taurus here soon. And so this is really about aligning with our personal beliefs that actually really support our own identity and who we're becoming and who we really are. You know, this can be helpful to us to really looking at what kind of beliefs have we taken on from others that really doesn't support who we really are. So having the moon pass over that and then coming into this new moon at 29 degrees can be really helpful in looking at our belief systems and are they supporting us. We might have some new beliefs that actually support our identity in a much more heightened way that is really assisting us to tap into our higher mind and really, you know, more of a vibrational resonance. So this could also be assisting us to make sure that we're in relationships where there is an energetic match, where it's resonant and really mutual as far as regenerating energy for us. One of the things I wanted to remember as well is that being that Pluto is, you know, starting to dip its toes into Aquarius. Aquarius has to do with detachment. And so because Pluto actually went into Aquarius and then retrogrades heading back into Capricorn during this season of the eclipses, this can be really looking at, okay, how do we utilize Aquarian detachment in a way that serves us? Sometimes the Aquarian detachment can be in shadow, where we're actually fragmenting our own consciousness. We're actually detaching ourselves from our own embodiment emotionally. And this is why Aquarius can be seen as a cold sign. Although that's not always the case. It's just that if it's in its shadow, it can be where we detach from our own psyche. We actually fragment our own consciousness. And how that could happen is basically we detach from our own values in order to accommodate others. And we could have been conditioned to do this. We could have been conditioned from our own family line, from our own friendships, from our own, you know, romantic partners. Could have been all kinds of ways in which maybe our society and society's norms, right? Where we detached from our own personal values to accommodate or to fit in to society in some way. But the high vibration of Aquarius is about being your own unique, brilliant light, which means really owning your value and your values. And so this is where we can utilize detachment in a positive way, where we actually detach from people, situations, circumstances that are not allowing us to be who we fully are in an authentic way. Remember that Saturn has to do with authenticity. So Aquarius and Capricorn is about authenticity from the inside out. And so with Pluto backtracking from Aquarius to Capricorn, going back into Aquarius, this is about really looking at, you know, are there relationships? Are there intimate bonds where we've shared resources with others? Resources is a Venusian theme, as well as a Plutonian theme, Taurus and Scorpio, where we shared our resources with people. And resources could be anything. It could be, of course, things that we find valuable. That could be information. It could be money or currency or ideas. Or it could be, you know, sharing our home with someone, sharing our secrets with someone, sharing and bearing our soul with someone, sharing our time, investing our time, investing our consciousness with others, right? And so Pluto, you know, going through this time where it's going into Aquarius, retrograding back into Cap, which we'll do because Pluto is an outer planet. These are once in a lifetime transits with Pluto. And so it does take its time. It gives us time to integrate. So it moves very slowly so that we can actually make the changes necessary, which is really big changes. These are fundamental changes to our psychological development. And so we are given the time and to assess these things. Now, how can we use detachment in a positive way? Well, first of all, we don't want to be detaching from what we value and what is valuable for us personally. We don't want to detach from our own personal value, which comes from our own personal ideas, our own personal thoughts, our own personal, sense of self-love and how we desire to be loved and honored, right? And so we might find that we need to detach from intimate bonds, friendships, relationships that actually, or sharing resources with people where we feel that we're not being valued or honored or loved in the way that we desire. And we may have to detach from those people, circumstances, situations, right? So this is where detachment can be a positive thing. But again, as I said, detachment can also be something that actually fragments consciousness and that fragments our own identity as well. And so we lose parts of our own selves. We lose connection to parts of our own soul. We also lose connection to our own evolutionary momentum, as well as sharing our own unique, brilliant light with others. So during this eclipse season, we could have also had betrayals of trust. This is a Scorpio theme, a Plutonian theme. It could also be where we feel that we've been lied to. There could have been truth versus lies going on because, in this new moon solar eclipse, we have Venus in Gemini. And the Gemini Sagittarius axis of consciousness is about truth versus lies. And where we're sussing out what is really true for us and what is not true for us. So now, that Venus in Gemini is just past a square to Saturn in Pisces. And it's a first quarter square. And so this can really be about relationships and boundaries. And in regards to truth versus lies, right? So what's true for us, what's not true for us, where we may need to dissolve relationships that are not in alignment with our own personal values. And again, first and foremost, remember Venus is the planetary ruler of the North Node. So this is where we really need to be honoring our personal values and be discerning in regards to others' values, and again, in honor and devotion to our own values and value first and foremost, so that we're not detaching from parts of ourselves. We're not fragmenting our consciousness and fragmenting our own identity. We can be really honoring that we desire to structure our relationships in certain ways, and what is resonant with that and what is not resonant with that. So we want to be, I think, looking at that. Now, I'm going to move on because I don't want this to be too long. So I'm going to go to the full moon, May 5th. This happened May 5th, 2023, 1:34 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the sun is at almost 15 degrees. It's 14 degrees, 58 minutes of Taurus. So remember, this is where Mercury went retrograde. And, you know, at any full moon, this means that the moon is opposing the sun. Now, in this full moon chart, we've got Sun conjunct Uranus. Uranus has made it all the way to 18 degrees and 42 minutes. So what's interesting is the moon, we experience this full moon lunar eclipse, and then it actually opposes Uranus shortly after. The moon takes about 2.5 days to move through a sign, so it moves pretty quickly. So pretty quickly after we experience the exact full moon, the moon opposes Uranus. And so I think that this could be bringing us information that gives us some new insight around what's occurring in our own lives and potentially in intimate bonds, people that we've shared resources with. This is Scorpio, right? Now, remember that that Pluto has been square the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio as well. This is an important point. In evolutionary astrology, when we have a planet square the nodes, there's what we call a resolution node. And this is where we actually have a key toward navigating the square. The square is a pressure, and it is felt. It is deeply felt, particularly with Pluto being in square to the nodes. And so this can really be the resolution node. First of all, before I get off track, the resolution node is the south node of the moon. And that means in Scorpio. Now, this is a south node eclipse because it's a Scorpio full moon. So this is where we can be looking at and reassessing the ways in which we've shared our resources with others. And that, you know, at the end of the day, the bottom line of that is our resources is always going to come down to how we've shared our consciousness with other people, how we've shared our consciousness in the world, right? And so we could be having experiences where we need to actually take another look at the way in which we've been investing our consciousness with others, particularly intimate bonds or in intimate ways. So now this could be friendships because Pluto's in Aquarius, and Aquarius has to do with friendships, but it could also be with groups of people. Aquarius can very much be groups. It could be family as well, but any kind of group that we find ourselves in. Could be a friendship group as well. So this is where we could have been experiencing, taking another look at what is working for us, what is not working for us. And anything that may have come up emotionally, really paying attention to how you're feeling through the senses, you know, not only the body, but also your gut. You know, what if something feels off, trusting that and really doing some deep psychological work in regards to what's really occurring. And, you know, honoring your gut and your feelings around it. So a very important point. And because Mercury went retrograde very, very close to Uranus, like I said, I think it's possible we could have come across some information that shines a light on something that we may have sensed before, but is validated or is coming up very vividly for us. Now, what's interesting about this is that Mars is also a planetary ruler of Scorpio. So it's not only the planetary ruler of Scorpio, though, it's the planetary ruler of Aries, where we just experienced the solar new moon eclipse, right? So Mars is doing something interesting in the full moon lunar eclipse. Mars is at 21 degrees of Cancer, and it's actually in a trine. It's a waxing trine, which means it's, you know, approaching the trine to Neptune and Pisces. And at the same time, it's waxing or approaching a square to Jupiter in Aries. And so this can really be important, especially because remember, the moon is the planetary ruler of Cancer. So there's this mutual reception going on with the moon and Mars. And then what is Mars doing but trining Neptune in Pisces and squaring Jupiter and Aries? So this can be definitely, and by the way, I want to say too, Venus, Mars's feminine side, right? Mars and Venus have a very special relationship because Mars is our yang energy. Venus is our yin energy, right? They work together as creative, I like to call them creative lovers, but this is our creativity, right? How we act upon our own needs and then how we receive back based on our actions. Now, Venus is in Gemini, and remember, Gemini and Sag is the truth versus lies. And Mars is square to Jupiter. Sagittarius is ruler, but also the ruler of Pisces. So we could really be having some kind of information that assists us in really looking at what needs to be dissolved and in order to act on behalf of our own personal truth. And the truth that supports us personally, the truth that actually really informs us and supports us in building the quality of relationships we desire, as well as the quality of relationship we have with ourselves and our own senses, our own values and value. And so this is an important piece in this full moon eclipse. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of information that gives us an opportunity to really look at our beliefs. And, you know, we may need to discard some beliefs. And we may need to dissolve some beliefs. And we also may need to pivot in the way in which we're acting on behalf of our own needs and our beliefs. So we could have experiences that give us opportunity to actually detach from beliefs that are no longer resonant for us, that maybe were never really resonant for us, but that we took on in our own upbringing, childhood, our own conditioning, whatever it was, and actually coming into alignment with beliefs and acting upon a belief that is resonant in support of our own needs. So remember that Venus is the ruler of the North Node and Mars is the ruler of the South Node. And so what these two are doing is really important. So there is something around truth versus lies, our own belief systems, and the belief systems of others. And are there beliefs that we could be looking at through whatever's coming up in our life and utilize that opportunity to actually discard beliefs that are really not resonant anymore and act upon those that are. So, really potent full moon lunar eclipse. And remember that Mercury will go direct on May 15th at 5 degrees of Taurus. So, you know, Jupiter is finishing up its time in Aries. It's actually going to move into Taurus on May 17th. So that's pretty exciting. So that means it's going to conjunct the North Node. And so I'm going to do a video about that, because it's a pretty big transit as Jupiter moves into Taurus. And so I'll leave that for a different video so that this video isn't super long, because I did want it to be somewhat brief, but wanted to give you some information that I thought would be interesting in contemplating how this eclipse season has been unfolding for us, and how we can really utilize it as opportunities to culminate this Taurus and Scorpio axis in consciousness, where really, this is actually going to fruition. All this work that we've been doing with Taurus and Scorpio, with the nodes being there, this will fruition in about 9 years or so. And so this is really important timing. And, we'll actually also experience this cycle moving into even 18 and a half years from now, 19 years-ish from now as well. So all this internal work we've been doing has been really beneficial. And this eclipse season is really potent in regards to really coming into alignment with our own values and making sure that we're setting parameters in our own lives and our relationship to ourselves and our own needs and our relationships with others and others' needs, making sure that we're not making compromises to our own values and value. And also to make sure that we are detaching from things that are not resonant with our own values and value, that which we desire to embody in the world, and really honoring our value and values as a way of actually sharing more in the world, sharing our own unique, brilliant light. And as Pluto moves into Aquarius for good, as Pluto's moving through Aquarius, this is really going to be asking us and squeezing us in regards to pressuring this Taurus-Scorpio axis in our own consciousness, where, this is the fixed grand cross, Taurus and Scorpio, Aquarius and Leo. This is the fixed grand cross. So this is about really doing a lot of work in regards to our automatic defaults, making sure that we're really, really owning and embodying what we value so that we can bring our own personal, unique, and brilliance into the world, the way in which we're designed to bring it. So if we've been making compromises to our own value, it's going to be challenging to actually bring this unique brilliance through. But what's beautiful about Pluto moving through Aquarius is that Pluto will make sure that we're looking deeper and deeper into these things in our own psychological development, as our own psyche, and where it is that we may be disempowering ourselves and where we can be empowering ourselves to be in full alignment with our own unique, brilliant design and value that we have to share in the world. So I hope this is helpful, and I would love to hear what you think. So feel free to comment or like the video so that it gets distributed if you feel this is helpful. And definitely you're welcome to subscribe to my channel. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you so much for joining me.